Hello, Honors Algebra 2. We are on our last video for the study guide. So we're going to start on 17, which is talking about graphs. And so let's get started. So we start with our parent function like normal. So my parent function is looking at cosine. Okay, so I'm going to start there. Now, you guys can look at your parent function table, or we can look at our unit circle. Remember, your x values are always the same. 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And then my y values are what cosine is equal to at those points. So at 0, if we're looking at our unit circle, cosine is my x value. It's 1. So it's 1. And then pi over 2, my x value is 0, so cosine of pi over 2 is 0. And then it's -1, 0, and back to 1. Okay, so with that information, what we're going to do is now we're going to apply our transformations. So our transformations, we have 1 on the outside, so that's 3. Now that 3, is that a change to the x values or is that a change to the y values? And if you're thinking change to y, you are correct. And then if we're looking at the 2, is that going to be a change to the x or a change to the y? And if you're saying that's a change to the x, you would be right. And then we have one more. That +1, is that a change to the x or a change to the y? And if you're thinking change to y, you are correct. Now, before we even get started with the transformation, remember, A, or this number out in front, always tells me my amplitude. So if my amplitude is whatever A is, if this number is 3, that tells me my amplitude is going to be 3. Remember, that's the height of the the distance from the center of the wavelength to the top of the wavelength or to the bottom of the wavelength. And then my the length of the period is always going to be looking at 2 pi. 2 pi is my normal, and then it would be 2 pi divided by b. So 2 pi divided by 2. So that tells me my period is going to be pi. Okay, so now let's just apply our transformations. So all of my x values, remember we do the opposite operation. So this is being multiplied by 2. So I'm going to divide all of my x values by 2. So 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. We're going to take those and divide all of them through by 2. And then my y values, I have 2 transformations. So I have to multiply all my y values first by 3 and then add 1. So I'm just going to take all of my y values. We're going to first multiply by 3 and then add 1. And then I can get my final table. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Pi over 2 divided by 2. Remember, we did a problem like this on the homework. So pi over 2 divided by 2 actually gets me pi over 4. If you need to use your calculator and just do 1/2 divided by 2, gets you 1/4, and just throw back in that pi. And then pi over 2 is just pi over 2. 3 pi over 2 divided by 2 is 3 pi over 4, and then 2 pi divided by 2 is pi. And then 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 0 plus 1 is 1. -3 plus 1 is -2. 0 plus 1 is 1, and 3 plus 1 is 4. So then I can graph my curve. So I'm going to label my curve first. So pi over 4, I'm going to label the graph first. I don't know what I said. Maybe I said that. Who knows? And then we need 4. So I'm going to go mark these. So that's 4, and then that's going to be -2. Okay, so 0 is at 4. Pi over 4 is at 1. Pi over 2 is at -2. There we go. And then 3 pi is at 1. And pi is at 4. Remember, cosine has that like wavelength that's like this. And so you can't just draw this like a parabola. You have to show that you understand that these are going down. And that is my graph. Okay, so 18, the last one, just says without graphing, determine what the amplitude and period is of the trigonometric function. So the amplitude is always looking at the absolute value of A. So my amplitude, if we're looking at A here, well, the absolute value of -4 is 4. So my amplitude is going to be 4. And then the period, well, the period is always looking at this, basically 2 pi divided by B. So 2 pi divided by 2, which gets me pi. So my amplitude is 4, and the period is pi. So for B, my amplitude is 3/2. And then the period, we're going to take 2 pi and divide it by 1/3. So if we want to do that with like showing that would be 2 pi divided by 1/3. If we want to put a 1, and then that would be 2 pi over 1 times 3/1, which would get me 6 pi. So my amplitude here is 3/2, and my period here is 6 pi. Okay, last one. So the amplitude here is the absolute value of 1/2, which is just 1/2. And then the period is looking at 2 pi divided by 3. And we can't simplify that, so that's the length of the period. So the amplitude is 1/2, and then the period is 2 pi over 3. And that is it, guys. I hope you guys have a great day. Yeah, I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. And if you need me, email me. Come to the office hours. Whatever you guys need, please let me know. And have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.